Namaste and welcome to the Wed Talks with Ved podcast, where we dive into all things weddings, culture, and celebration with purpose. I'm a wedding planner. My name is Vedangi Brahman and host for this channel. And today's episode is especially close to my heart. I, as a wedding planner, we have often focused on colors, decor, and logistics. But behind every Indian wedding lies something deeper, a spiritual journey filled with symbolism, vows, and intention. And to truly appreciate it, we need to understand the meaning behind it all. So, joining me today is someone who brings that meaning to life. Pandit Yatri Trivedi, a respected Hindu priest who has been performing wedding ceremonies for years and years across US and beyond. He has guided hundreds of couples through their sacred vows, helping them not only perform the rituals but understand why each moment matters. We'll be talking about the spiritual essence of the Hindu wedding, the importance of customizing traditions mindfully, and practical tips like avoiding venues that don't have enough room for a proper mandap or don't allow enough time for setup. Please help me welcome Yatri Trivedi and hear our meaningful talk around the essence of true Indian wedding. Thank you for joining us today. Yatri, uh, let's start with how did you start this journey? What inspired you to become a Hindu priest, and what was your calling or the purpose?
So it's really interesting because I don't think I ever would have thought to do this kind of work. Actually, I didn't think it was sort of in my wheelhouse, my skill set. But I grew up doing puja at home with my grandparents. My grandmother basically did everything at home. We didn't really go to a temple much. There wasn't any around us for a very long time. And so I've sort of internalized a lot of that. I actually studied religion. I have a BA in religion from Rutgers, and with a focus on Hinduism and Eastern religions. And I took some classes at Columbia too. I initially was going to go into an academic route.
Okay.
Um, but a couple of years ago, my cousin was getting ready to propose to his girlfriend, and he was asking his friends, would you do the whole big Indian wedding thing again? And I've been married 9 years now, so
Congratulations.
thank you. Um, so for me, I said, yeah, absolutely, I would do it again. And I had a great family pundit who's fantastic, and I just take an interest in these things anyway. So I learned a lot in the process, and I was explaining to him what these things mean, what they stand for, and he was like, you should be doing this. You're really good at that. And that's sort of what started it, you know?
That's what happened with me too.
Yeah.
Because you need such people in life who tell you what you're good at, and you don't know what is history then. I planned my mom's 50th birthday, my wedding, and the vendors who I hired for those two events told me that I should do this for living,
All
and
right.
the rest is history.
That's amazing.
Something to resonate with your story that somebody told you you're good at it, and now you are somebody amazing who I recommend to each and every couple that comes to me because he's that good. Make notes, everybody who's listening.
Thank you.
Let's go on because a lot to talk about today.
Yeah.
I have so many questions. A lot of couples want to blend their modern touch for the wedding to the traditional essence of our Hinduism and our nationality, community, everything. How do you, as a priest, uh, suggest or advise or try to bring both worlds together?
So usually when I work with my clients, my yajamanas, we sit down, we kind of talk about what they believe because a lot of this comes down to perspective. And we say traditional, but a lot of what we consider as traditional is only 200 to 300 years old or 500 to 600 years old. It doesn't actually historically go back to Vedic times, so there's a lot of perspective that's involved. So that's sort of the first part is understanding where they find importance and value in the belief structure. And then from there, it's pretty easy to kind of identify what matches. There's all the aspects of ritual for us have layers. And I guess that's probably the key word, right? It's ritual for us. We think of weddings as ceremonies, something that we do in front of audiences, but the Hindu ritual is designed to change you, and your partner. into something new. And that's, if you come at it with that perspective, it's pretty easy to find the things that matter to you, that you need to include or, want to focus on.
As a wedding planner, we've worked together, so I know your perspective on this, but this is for others who are listening to us and all the couples. When do you want the couples to start hiring a priest? Like, what stage in the wedding planning process that they should have it at? And as planners, what do you suggest us or the couples? Some highlight things that they should or we should think about before planning things ahead. What are some topics of discussions that we should definitely have with the priest before making certain vital decisions that actually help the logistics and operations of the whole process?
I love that you asked that question because that's sort of where I find the most amount of friction when we're planning, weddings for folks. As early as you can in the process. I mean, I'm a little biased, obviously, but it helps a lot. And the reason is very simple. It's because, as an example with couples that I've worked with, when they understand what's important in the ritual, then they feel stuck, right? I have couples who have, they think it's going to be a very small wedding. They don't need a big stage size, but then they want to involve their family more because that's really important to them. And then when the mandap size is very small, it's really hard to do that. On the other hand, we have people who want, obviously everyone wants short rituals these days. Um, but then they also want everything done in English for one side of the family, and then in maybe Gujarati or Hindi for the other side of the family, and then they want the Sanskrit mantras. It's not possible to do all three in a short period of time. And if the venue is pushing them towards saying you only have an hour 15, that becomes really difficult for them.
Right.
So if you know these things in advance, it's easier to say, okay, this is less important, so it's going to be a shorter ritual. We're fine using a smaller time, but we need a bigger mandap, or vice versa.
Mm-hmm. Nice. Uh, the way you said a shorter wedding, a lot of couples are now asking for it, especially outdoors when the heat is a big question. We cannot have the guests sitting out there for like 40 minutes, 45 minutes, an hour. So, how do you shorten the version? Like, what things, what rituals are kept? Are we skipping any rituals? How are you as a priest handling that situation?
That's a really good question. It depends on the couple ultimately, what they find important and what they, I work with a lot of families who are very, very modern and they're very, very symbolic in their work. And so for them, a lot of the ritual work doesn't matter so much.
Mm-mm.
In terms of like making sure that you're doing all four parts of the homam or the fire right. Um, a lot of the way we save time is by skipping some of the Sanskrit, right? So
Okay.
I love the Sanskrit, I do, but most people are not going to understand it the way I do anyway in the audience. And most of what we do is actually we're just stating what we're doing.
Mm-hmm.
So we can do that in a language we understand and speak, and that's also faster. And then the important, prayers themselves, the hymns, the riks, those can be in Sanskrit, and that's sort of how we offset that time.
Right.
And then in very special circumstances, we might do other things. Like with one couple, we actually did a wedding in their backyard, the full form, and then next year they're going to do something on a stage with everybody, and we can pick and choose and go short as long as we like because we did the actual ritual already.
That's interesting.
It's a really smart take. I can't believe I didn't think of it.
Mm-hmm. So a complete wedding was done, but now there's going to be a stage version.
Yeah, there's a lot of the parts that involve family members, so those parts we save because those are more cultural or like kul related, like clan related, right? Um, but the stuff that's important for the couple themselves to go through, the stepping into the role of Vishnu and Lakshmi and taking their vows and doing the fire, that's all done, in advance.
Right. Like you said, we skip the Sanskrit sometimes because a lot of times the guests don't understand it, and to save time, because we can say that in English, you're still explaining what everything means. But as a priest, would you like to highlight a little bit why the Sanskrit or the why mantras or hymns are important? Probably for the couples who are looking to do a full-fledged wedding.
Absolutely, absolutely. Sanskrit is a touchstone for us. Throughout the years, that's the liturgical language that we have, and it's a common root to our back to our people, right? Um, in that sense, it's really important culturally. There's a part of the process I think is meditative, right? I mean, we do things differently here, but in India, if you were married doing the traditional way, you kind of sit back and let it happen to you. And when a lot of that's happening in different language, things are happening in your mind, you're more receptive to it, even if you don't understand all of it. But there will be parts and words and sections that you do understand based on your experiences, and those will stick out to you and reach out to you. So there's a lot of variety there that's really helpful.
Nice.
I think fundamentally, the prayers are just beautiful poetry, and they have a rhythm to them, and they have a sound to them, and it's just it's a great way of pulling interest from people to say, hey, you know what, this sounds good. Let me actually study what that's about. And Hinduism's all about self-study, in that way.
Thank you, Yatri. That was very insightful. And I myself also like the longer version, everything done full fledged with Sanskrit in it and everything. Uh, the other take as a priest, a lot of times there are songs playing during the ceremony, right? There are Bollywood songs to it, there are any other song to it, movie songs, and there are traditional songs, probably Gujarati, Punjabi, Hindi. It couldn't be any song from around India which is traditional to weddings. What do you as a priest prefer? Do you prefer some songs playing during certain ceremonies like Feras, a song is playing, or during Mangal Sutra Sindoor, a song is playing, or no song at all, and preference over traditional or any movie song?
Ooh, okay. So first thing is really important to mention. There's no one thing that all Hindus do as part of the wedding process, right? Like in different parts of India, there's four feras, which is first the seven, and some people focus on a larger Ganesh Puja as an example, and there's a lot of variance. Everything's kind of up for grabs. So that sort of plays a part into it. It depends on what the family's traditions are and what they do. As an example, some families they have a strong tradition of someone singing the Mangalashtakam during the
Yes.
bride's arrival, right? And people compete for that role to be able to sing it, right? But that's not a big thing in, say, Gujarati weddings. So, you know, I think it depends a lot on that. I would say I think up until Mangal Fair, it's nice to have sort of calm, focused, lighter music, if any. And then once we have our Mangal Fair, that's sort of once the fairs are done, that's traditionally when we consider you married. And then the next step is your vows and everything else. Um, that's when, I tell the crowd they can start getting rowdier over time. So, pump it up towards the end is good. I don't think I really have a preference. I think it really depends on like the decor and the food choices. It really comes down to the aesthetics.
Correct. Got it. As it all comes together.
Right.
Yes. I suggest this to all my couples. I have a list of traditional songs that they can play during the ceremony. You know this because we've worked together. But those songs make so much sense, and like you said, they go upbeat little by little. Like Feras have a traditional song. Uh, Akhand Sabhagyavati has a traditional song. Kansar has a traditional song. Sindoor, Mangal Sutra. Like a Bollywood song can be played at the end for the walkout, but these songs actually soothe during the whole ceremony. And like you said, the decor is traditional, outfits are traditional, the ceremony is traditional. I think traditional songs make a lot more aesthetic sense over any other choices of songs.
Yeah, I think it's also nice because it acts as filler. Like I tell couples very often, putting on Mangalsutra should not take more than 2 minutes. It
Correct.
always takes 8, 9 minutes.
It's
Because
complicated.
It is. The hair is up a certain way, and you have your veils, and you're going from the front to put it around her neck, and everything. It's just so for those kinds of time, and it's also because we do a different style here, right? Where we have a captive audience.
Yes.
And so you need something for them to
Yes.
focus on during that time,
Yes.
as opposed to Indian weddings where
Correct.
people are mingling, right?
I'm glad you brought that point up, captive audience. So, a lot of times, like in the American ceremonies, I've done both weddings, American, South Asian, so have you. A lot of times, the American wedding, the crowd is sitting the whole time, pin drop silence. Whereas for our side, the South Asian weddings, it's not the same. People are getting up to get something to drink, something to eat. I, as a planner, and a lot of planners, this is nothing new. We all try to keep a small snack kit on each chair such that nobody has to get up for grabbing something to eat or grabbing something to drink. So everything is right there. They don't have to get up. But still, there's a lot of noise. There's a lot of up and down happening. We and DJ sometimes has to announce that please let's respect and have some silence. How do you, as a priest, uh, I shouldn't call this, but you are that stage stopper over there. You
Yeah.
are the performer for that ceremony. How do you, as a performer, manage guest attention?
It's really difficult because I think a lot of us who are born and raised here, we have that Western sort of ceremony mentality internalized, and that's what we expect. And it's really hard to get someone to understand that what they've been thinking of for like many years, it's not wrong. It's just a different style, right? But the traditional style works the way it does because exactly that. We have a list of mantras, a list of elements that are important for the couple, or bring in the immediate family, but not so important for the audience members. And they get to essentially party, right? They enjoy food and drink. They share good memories. It's about building that positive energy, right? And the blessings, right? That's sort of what comes together. And I like that. I had a couple I was really really privileged to do a wedding for in the Reagan building, and they decided to do this traditional style. So they had everybody with food and drink and everything mingling and chatting, and it was really easy for me to kind of pull their attention when the time comes to invite particular family members to come up to the mandap to do their part, explain things, and then cut mic, do the things that we need to do that are appropriate for setup, put the mic back on, do our mantras and everything. And it's this ebb and flow of giving attention and going back. And I think it's easier for the audience, especially these days where attention spans are, a limited supply. With captive audiences, it's a little different. I try to engage them and include them in the work, especially in our early mantras, having them chant Om and having them understand that it's about the vibes that we're putting forward. Um, having them take some action keeps them invested.
Right.
That's a big aspect.
It is. It is.
And then once we, again, after our Saptapadi and Mangalfera, then it's okay for them to start getting a little rowdier and chatting and, sharing that kind of stuff. I think it's often also difficult for couples because I think a lot of couples imagine that and they want that, but there's a lot of like downtime for them where people are focused on them. And I think doing the traditional style helps with that because they're not so self-conscious or anything in that way.
Yeah.
But there's no wrong answers here. It's about what you like. And
True. But it's by the couple. A lot of times they do tell us underlining that, hey, please make sure everybody's quiet and etc. But everybody is gonna get rowdy, especially during fairas. Then there is no end to it. So after fairas, it's just everything is everywhere.
It is. It's all over the place. Another area of difference I see is in Western culture, we have everybody stand at the bride entrance to give her the respect that she has. For us, it's the opposite. Because if she's the only one standing and moving, all the focus and attention is on her. Everyone gets to see her and watch her entrance. But it's also, when we're in a mandir, right? Deity is standing and we're all sitting. And that's what she is at that moment. She's Lakshmi for us. So she's the only one who has a right to stand in that sense. And so it's a different way of offering that respect. And so figuring that out in advance what the couple wants. And, I tell them it's my job is to tell you what these things mean and where the significance comes from so that you can make the decisions in an informed manner. But the decisions come from you,
Correct, yeah. That was a nice story that you said about who stays up when the bride enters. Very nice aspect and insight to it.
Thank you.
I think we went fast.
Yeah.
You guys are answering it so smooth and like it's very conversational. It's very, very nice.
Thank you. Good. It's going well.
So Yatri, let's touch a little bit about the couple's spiritual journey through this wedding, and what would you recommend as a part of preparation, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, for the couple when they are going through this wedding planning process and performing their wedding, because everything is so commercialized these days. The focus is on if the decor is good, the focus is on if the timeline is good. And me as a wedding planner, yes, my focus is on those things also. But that's my job. But what should the couple be focused on such that they are soaking what is happening? Because it's not a small thing, it's once in a lifetime, very memorable day. We want to make sure they are understanding the importance of the depth of the situation, because a lot of time the other moving parts are taking it away.
Yeah, it's really hard because, like I said, in India, we kind of sit back and let the ritual happen to us. We go through the motions, and that gives us that change. Here, I mean, we often planning our own weddings, or at least getting everything started. You know, not everyone's just, thinks to have a planner like you who can be on top of everything, and so that work falls to them. I think a lot of the cultural touchstones in the wedding vidi are about changing me and me into we, right? Um, Here, I think a lot of couples have this idea because they generally were dating for longer before we get married. We've already have an established relationship. We may even be living together before we get married. We feel like we don't necessarily need that. And I think that's what I try to impress on couples, that just go with the flow because there's going to be things that you miss, right? So I think having someone to work with who can explain this stuff in advance to give you time, because it can't happen in one day. Um, we're not equipped for that. Your attention's not going to be on taking it in on your day. I do my best to kind of give them that experience, but it's the nature of what it is to be abroad. I think understanding what's important culturally is one step, because it just tells you that this is something that we should not neglect. Um, I can give you an example that traditionally, right, it's usually women who keep the family structure together, right? They're the ones who um, share the information. It doesn't matter if you're an in-law or not, right?
Right.
But in my wife's family, that's very different. Her brothers and male cousins and uncles, they're the ones who usually kind of keep that going, especially in our generation.
Okay.
And we didn't really talk about that before we got married. And it took us a little bit to kind of figure out our bearings and how we wanted to handle that. Um, versus a topic that did come up, which is artha, right? Artha is our material wealth, but also charity, giving away to people who need it, especially in your local communities. So my wife and I talk about charity very extensively before we even got married. And, if something comes up and she needs to give, she knows exactly how I'd feel, what's important, how much I'm comfortable with. And, we're very in tune, and we have been from the beginning.
That's very smart.
And I think that's the thing, is picking those things out, getting aligned, and having that ready to go, so that once your big day happens, you feel like you're in a stride already.
This is what's more important, right?
Yes.
Because wedding is a one day, probably one weekend thing, but what they're getting together for is a lifetime thing. And what you just said, like the conversation you and your wife had about artha, it could be about everything. It could be about kama, moksha, dharma, everything. And they can talk about everything, how they can do together before probably getting married, before making this decision, getting their thoughts aligned. Like you said, you didn't know that her side of the family, it was all male who took that responsibility, which on your side was women. A lot of upbringing, a lot of childhood traits and habits plays a huge role. And it that's what's gonna rule your marriage later.
Yeah.
So it's amazing that you touched on that point, and something that the couples and families should probably think about, talk about before the big day.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and we have a very 50-50 mindset, right? Hinduism, I think, is very egalitarian, but very opinionated on gender roles, right?
Yes.
They come from a very, very different time. And what I tend to see is basically 50-50 is just
Shifting.
100% here, 100% here, and
Yeah.
all the
Yeah.
way down the line.
Yes.
And yeah, like you said, it's shifting a lot. And so having couples kind of figure out in advance what their 50-50 looks like, 70-30 here, 70-30 here,
Yes, yes.
80-20 and different items, I guess. That's really important.
Mm-hmm.
And it takes time to get into that and lead up to that, and especially with couples who don't live together before they get married. Once you move in, it's a very different experience.
Yes.
And having talked about these things in advance means you have a much smoother process.
Yes, yes, yes. A little smoother, because still there are so many
Okay.
things to figure out, right? Yes. And I've realized this too. Like couples who have lived together before getting married have a lot figured out for them to now get married and uh, being one, like you said, getting aligned into one. But few years would be a little figuring out stage for other couples who are now moving in together.
Yeah.
100% I agree on that. Yatri, now let's touch on a different logistical aspect. A lot of couples now are modern, they are born here but Indian. A lot of intercultural weddings, like the bride is Indian but the groom is from another culture, vice versa. How do you handle that situation from a perspective that on the day of there are a lot of things that you want the bride and the groom to do, or the parents to do? So if the cultures are different, the parents are also probably not knowing what to do, how to do, like a pan sopari, where everything, what is going where, you are definitely instructing. But would it help, like the Western culture, to do a rehearsal the weekend before or the day before? The day before doesn't make sense because we have a lot of pre-wedding events already happening, but a week before, or in person or virtually, what is your take on that aspect? And should that be like a non-negotiable thing that a couple and a family should do?
I think it's non-negotiable if you have a time limit, because that's where you lose the most time.
Correct, yes.
But jumping back just a bit, I think the rehearsal aspect, the going over aspect is key. Like I work with couples sometimes a year in advance to give them the education and take them through all of this. And then once we do our call where we dive into all the aspects of, the Graha Shanti and the Lagna Vidhi and everything, then we do the same call with their parents and their
Right.
siblings,
Right.
because then their family members understand what's there. They were married once a long time ago. They might have other family members, but everything's different, and this is two families coming together, so they have to negotiate what they're doing fresh. So giving them a refresher is really helpful. I like to do a virtual call maybe a month or so beforehand, just to make sure that everybody is on board and comfortable. Especially interfaith weddings. People from Western religious backgrounds often have misunderstandings of what we believe, and so they often are hesitant, to do things, or at least they want to know and understand before they do them. So giving them that education gives them that confidence. And then doing a walkthrough 2 days, 3 days before is really good, because it lets everyone know where their places are, where they should be waiting, what their cues are. It just makes the whole process much, much smoother. You can take something that takes an hour and a half and really hit 55 minutes just through the rehearsal.
Correct. So you don't have to instruct.
Right, absolutely. And then someone like you who has coordinating background, right? You can, it's easier for you to find where people are. And
yes, 100%.
yeah.
Lovely. So that was amazing. Are there any other insights that you'd like to tell our couples? Anything else logistically, operationally, that you as a priest can enlighten them and it'll help them in their planning journey? And even the after journey, because that's more important.
Yeah. I mean, everything is set up for that after journey.
Yes.
I think obviously communication is super important for couples. They need to understand, and they need to learn how to talk to each other, how to argue with each other kindly, right? All these things. I don't know. I think the big takeaway for couples is essentially the whole vidhi is designed to put you in a certain mindset, that it's you and your partner versus the world, right? I mean, family's important. No one's saying they're not, right? And so much so that they have important functions that they do in the wedding. But ultimately, right, you who are Vishnu and Lakshmi, And so it's about you versus everyone. I think humans just understand and us versus the mentality in that kind of way, and so that's the big thing. And I think that's if you take that away, you realize even when you're angry or upset with each other, even if you're having difficulties, you're playing for the same team, you know, and that helps you check your behavior if you don't have the best intentions. It also helps you extend that patience and gratitude and kindness to your partner because they're not just Lakshmi or Vishnu on that day.
Yeah.
You know, it's for the rest of your life, really. So that's that mentality, you know.
Lovely. That were some amazing pointers, insights, and great conversation. Probably our listeners, the couple who's planning their wedding, who is now thinking about it, or the families listening to us, I hope they have a lot to think about, uh, probably incorporate it in their own journey for their own wedding or the kids' wedding. Yatri, would you like to talk a little bit about yourself and how a couple or the family should reach you and anything about your website, Instagram?
Absolutely, sure. Thank you. So I go by Dapper Pundit on Instagram, dapperpundit.com. So anyone who's interested can just send an email or, sign up for a consult. You know, my day job is in the tech industry, so I approach this kind of like consulting. We do like an intro call to make sure that personalities fit, and then from there we make sure that the education, everything is in place. Um, I just think in general, it's nice to be able to work with couples who really want to understand what they're doing and be intentional. Intentionality is one of the biggest things that is part of the process of Hindu puja, right? So, stating your intentions in advance, understanding what they are, and checking them as you go through and do things. If that really resonates with you, you want to learn and understand, or especially if you're doing interfaith weddings and you really need to have someone who understands the other faiths as well to be able to speak their language and negotiate. I think those are things I excel at and really enjoy doing.
Lovely.
So that's how you can get a hold of me. DMs, emails, and Zoom meetings.
Lovely. Yatri, let's touch on a point where, and I as a wedding planner have observed this, the ceremony is happening, a ritual is happening, parent, guests, or relatives, anybody who are over there are probably instructing a priest, hey, this is not what we do, this is what we do. How do you, as a priest, take on that? Do you change what you do? Do you want such things to be communicated in advance? Because this should be part of rehearsal, that we all are aligned in one set of mind, that hey, these are the rituals and this is the method in which you're doing. Even you as a priest to know what their preference is, and the whole importance of having the family part of each and every call or the rehearsal, such that we can skip such scenarios or tough situations in front of a whole audience because you're in a spot.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. Um, it's interesting because, like I said, there's no one thing that all Hindus do, and some families have different traditions, depending on background and all of that. So it's important to do the planning process early with the parents because the parents aren't going to remember everything. I think a lot of people in general think they know what goes into a Hindu wedding, but the reality is there's so much variety to begin with, and a lot of times what happens is people will, this auntie or this dadi will remember, oh, this is what we're supposed to do next, or this comes here. A lot of times, actually, in terms of the religious component, the order doesn't matter, or it's a cultural thing that we do, but there's no requirement for it. So figuring that stuff out in advance is really key. Sitting down with them, with the parents, and then for the parents to go out and speak to their family members and everything and come back. Um, I I think that it's sort of designed a way for family members to kind of say what they do because they keep their personal traditions alive. So I want that feedback because that makes it personal for the couple. But at the same time, I don't want someone to say we have to do something that the bride or groom are not comfortable with. And so
It's not spoken in advance. They don't know what it is.
exactly, and we don't want to surprise them on that day and have them again in front of a big audience figure out the importance of this religiously and if it fits their worldview. Like give them that time in advance, and we can include anything that they like. And then I think once we get to a week before the wedding, our itinerary is frozen, no changes.
Good.
Which
Yes.
it's I feel bad doing that, because usually again it's usually women traditionally anyway, because under the traditional lens they leave their family to join the other.
Mhm.
They dictate how these things work because they know what the mix is between what they were brought up with and their new family. So I don't like to say no, but it's just the time for that was before. And if someone didn't ask you, then there might be a reason why, the couple has something they have in mind and they're going to do it anyway.
Yes.
Or because maybe there's another family member who is a little more important in their advice and we have to defer to them, right? So yeah, day of, no changes. But before that, there's plenty of time, and it's important to do that because that's how you get it to be really, really specific and meaningful.
100%. A lot of brides are now also skipping the Kanyadan
Yeah.
because they don't believe in the whole concept, which doesn't make sense in today's world as for them.
Right.
What is your take on that?
So I'm not a woman, right? So I can't speak in that sense because I've never had to go undergo that. My understanding from the scripture is that this comes from a time when people were getting married much younger, and it's important for, especially around child marriage, right? You want to make sure that whoever's getting married understands that this is their new family and that's where they go. It's important, I think, traditionally as well. There's often cross family interference and things like that. These days we live very differently, so really the work of Kanyadan is literally just one sankalpa mantra. The Hastamelap is what we see. That's not the Kanyadan. That's a different step that has different significance. So it's easy enough to skip. It's also easy enough to modify. You can change the wording so it's not just that you're giving away a daughter. You can have it be gender neutral, and then you can have both parents take this sankalpa, right? Because a lot of couples these days, the equality is not negotiable. Every single thing has to be figured out in that way. Which again is fine. But I like the symbolism of that because I think these days one of the problems that we have is family members pushing into a couple, and that leads to a lot of strife and maybe even divorce sometimes. And so instilling in both parents that this is a new family unit and they need time for themselves to figure things out, go into a rhythm, and it's important for their life. Reinforcing that is really important.
Right.
And I know that probably offends a lot of people from the older generation, but these are the times and they change, and Hinduism has changed many times. What we think is traditional now is some of which is only 200-300 years old, right?
Yes. A lot is man-made. A lot is probably not even told by God. So, but we pick the best of everything. As you correctly said, the wordings can change. It can be from both sides. So it makes a huge difference and a nice modern take to it, but making sure it is still traditional.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sankalpa especially because it's not a mantra in the sense that it's a prayer. You're literally just saying, hey, on this time, in this place, this phase of the moon, this season, this continent, this country, I, with my name and my family background, am taking this action for this purpose. It's meant to change depending on what you're going to do already. And so having someone who can really work with that is pretty important. And then the actual mantras sort of can work. It's not a problem.
Yatri, thank you so much for sharing your time, wisdom, and perspective with us today. Your insights remind us that a wedding isn't just a celebration, it's a sacred union of souls, families, and intentions. For all our listeners, whether you are a couple planning your big day or wedding professional helping others create theirs, I hope today's conversation helps you approach your ceremony with a little more awareness, respect, and heart.